Williams had been living with his friend in a cramped apartment, struggling to find a stable job. Each rejection email felt like another weight added to his shoulders. He hated being a burden. When he stumbled across a job posting online offering a fortune for simple housework, it seemed too good to be true. Desperation has a way of silencing doubt. The estate sat at the edge of town, hidden behind towering iron gates and thick, gnarled trees. The mansion was massive, its dark silhouette looming against the cloudy sky. A man in a formal suit greeted Williams at the door. His face was unreadable, voice flat and direct. "The rules are simple," the man said, handing Williams a neatly typed sheet of paper. Rule 1, complete all assigned tasks before midnight. Rule 2, do not enter any locked rooms. Rule 3, if you hear footsteps behind you, do not turn around. Rule 4, if you hear 3 knocks at the door past midnight, ignore them. Rule 5, if you see someone unfamiliar inside, do not acknowledge them. Rule 6, do not sleep in any room other than the servants' quarters. Rule 7, if you wake up in a different room than where you fell asleep, remain calm and return to the servants' quarters immediately. Follow these and your employment will be smooth, the man finished, then left without another word. William scoffed at the absurdity of it, but pocketed the paper. It wasn't his place to question eccentric employers, especially when they were willing to pay so well. The first evening went by uneventfully. The tasks were simple: dusting, sweeping, ensuring the fireplaces remained lit. The house, while grand, felt suffocatingly silent. The portraits lining the walls had an unnerving quality, their painted eyes seeming to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. But Williams ignored the creeping unease. As the night stretched on, he worked through his list. Then, around 11:45 p.m., while polishing a mirror in the main hall, he heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing against the marble floor. His stomach clenched. They were close, just behind him. His grip on the cloth tightened. He wanted to turn, to prove to himself that it was just his imagination. But the rules. The footsteps continued for a moment longer, then stopped. The air behind him felt charged, heavy. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to run, but he stayed rooted in place, heart hammering in his chest. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the sensation lifted. The air felt lighter. Williams forced himself to keep working, eyes fixed on his reflection. He wouldn't let paranoia ruin this opportunity. At exactly midnight, he heard 3 knocks at the front door. He stiffened, pulse racing. He glanced at the note in his pocket. Rule 4, if you hear 3 knocks past midnight, ignore them. He turned away from the entrance and walked toward the servants' quarters. Then he heard it, soft yet deliberate, as if someone were running their fingers along the wall. The sound moved with him, following his steps. He quickened his pace. Just as he reached the door to his quarters, the noise stopped. He hesitated only for a second before slipping inside and locking the door. He sat on the bed, breathing heavily, phone clenched in his hand. The screen was still lit from an unanswered call. His friend had tried reaching him earlier, but after what he had just experienced, Williams hadn't dared to pick up. He needed rest. Maybe exhaustion was making him imagine things. Sleep came in uneasy waves. The silence of the house pressed down on him, but eventually fatigue won. Then he woke up. Something was wrong. The air was colder, the scent of dust heavier. William sat up abruptly. This was not the servants' quarters. He was in a grand bedroom, the four-poster bed draped in thick velvet curtains. His breath hitched. Rule 7. If you wake up in a different room than where you fell asleep, remain calm and return to the servants' quarters immediately. He forced himself to move, slipping out of bed and making his way to the door. But as he stepped into the hallway, his stomach dropped. The house had changed. The corridors stretched endlessly, twisting into unfamiliar directions. The portraits were no longer just paintings. Their faces were distorted, mouths stretched wide in silent screams. Then he saw it. A figure stood in the dim hallway ahead, tall, unmoving, cloaked in darkness. Its face, if it had one, was shrouded in shadows, but Williams could feel its stare. Panic surged through him. He turned and ran. His heart pounded as he sprinted through the shifting halls. The air grew thick, suffocating. He knew where he needed to go, the front door. He just had to find it. He rounded a corner, nearly colliding with an antique table. There it was. Relief flooded him as he lunged forward, only to stop dead in his track. The door was gone. The grand entrance where he had first stepped in had vanished, replaced by an unbroken stretch of cold gray wall. His breathing turned shallow. He spun around, searching for another exit, another way out. But the house was different now. The walls seemed to pulse, the air thick with something ancient and hungry. A whisper echoed through the hall, then another, then another. The voices overlapped, a chorus of lost souls. Williams backed away, pressing himself against the wall, his pulse roaring in his ears. The shadowy figure emerged again, closer this time. His hands trembled as he pulled the crumpled rule sheet from his pocket. He read the words again, but something had changed. The final rule was no longer there. Instead, at the bottom of the page, a new line had appeared. Welcome home. The town of Black Hollow wasn't on most maps. Tucked away in a valley surrounded by thick woods, it had the kind of quiet that felt unnatural, like the town itself was holding its breath. Officer Daniel Carter didn't believe in small-town superstitions. He had spent 5 years in the city police force before being transferred to Black Hollow, and he wasn't about to let ghost stories shake him. His new home was an old but well-maintained house on the outskirts. The townspeople didn't say much when he arrived, just stared at him with something that wasn't quite fear, but wasn't welcoming either. It took him a few days to notice that none of them ever walked near his house. Even the other officers avoided mentioning it, only exchanging uneasy glances when he brought it up. The only one who reacted differently was a prisoner in the station's holding cell. An old man, scruffy and wide-eyed, who had been arrested for vagrancy. The moment Daniel walked past him, the man's entire body tensed. His breathing turned ragged.
"You live there now, don't you?"
he whispered.
"The house. You need to leave before..."
His voice cracked.
"Before it notices you."
Daniel had seen his share of unstable people, so he ignored the old man's ramblings. But over the next few nights, unease began creeping in. It started with small things, waking up with his furniture slightly moved, the sound of faint knocking from inside the walls, the uneasy feeling that someone was watching him from the darkest corners of his home. Then he found the diary, buried in the back of a kitchen cabinet, covered in dust. The leather was cracked with age, and the first page was dated 25 years ago. Officer Mark Holloway, Black Hollow Police. As Daniel flipped through the pages, a chill ran down his spine. Holloway had written about the same experiences, the knocking, the unease, the shifting furniture, but as the entries went on, the horror became undeniable. I see figures in the reflection of the windows, shadows move in ways they shouldn't. The house doesn't want me here. The last entry was short, the handwriting erratic. I know now. It's not the house, it's the town. The debt is due. Officer Mark Holloway had disappeared without a trace, just like the officer before him, and the one before that. Daniel slammed the book shut. His hands were shaking. He needed answers. At the station, he confronted his commanding officer. "Tell me about the disappearances." The older man sighed heavily. "You shouldn't go digging, Carter." "I am digging." A long silence followed before his commander finally spoke. "Every 5 years, someone new comes to Black Hollow, an outsider, and every time they vanish." He looked Daniel dead in the eyes. "You need to leave." Daniel had never run from anything in his life. He wasn't about to start now. That night, the house fought back. The knocking turned to pounding. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, creeping closer no matter how many lights he turned on. When he looked in the mirror, his reflection didn't move with him. Then came the whisper, a voice, his own voice, mimicking his breathing from just behind his ear. Daniel turned, gun raised. The hallway was empty, but the walls, they were wrong. They pulsed like something was breathing beneath them. A wave of nausea hit him, the floor shifting under his feet. The room darkened. A figure stood at the end of the hall. It wasn't human. Its form twisted and flickered, its face a swirling void. Daniel staggered back as the darkness stretched toward him, tendrils of shadow slithering along the floor. They shot forward, wrapping around his wrists, his ankles, dragging him toward the figure. As he struggled, his head jerked upward, and he saw them. Above him, suspended in the writhing mass of shadows, hung the missing officers. Their eyes were hollow, their mouths frozen in silent screams. The tendrils coiled around their limp bodies, pulling them deeper into the darkness. Daniel thrashed, panic surging through his veins. He fought against the inhuman grip, clawing at the floor. But the house had already decided. The last thing he saw before the void swallowed him was the prisoner, standing just outside his house, watching. His face was twisted with sorrow, his lips moving in soundless words Daniel could no longer hear. The next morning, the house was empty. Daniel Carter was gone. His police records erased. His name forgotten. The town had paid its debt, and the house waited patiently for the next one.